Hey, Patty.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I'm, live and well. So, welcome to GalaxyCon Talks Comics. I'm Mike Broder, and with me is Mr. Patrick Hawkins.
Hey.
Our producer Jude wasn't kidding when he said that he had the new extended intro. So that was a nice surprise.
Certainly was. You know what else was a nice surprise? I was listening to Joe Rogan today, and he said that if Florida was its own sovereign nation, which many Floridians wish it was, we would be number one in the pandemic right now, as internationally.
We're number one, Patty.
Indeed,
we're number one.
It is, and that was just a lead-in, of course, because we have an international guest joining us all the way from Ireland.
He is one of the most popular artists in the comic industry. He's worked on Return of Wolverine, The Punisher, Moon Knight, Old Man Logan, Deadpool, All-Star Batman. His latest project is Bog Bodies, an original graphic novel featuring Irish gangsters stranded in Dublin mountains, out from Image Comics. And without further ado, Mr. Declan Shalvey.
Oh, how's it going?
Good, man. Good. It's a little late over in your neck of the woods.
As grand, sure, I'd be working away anyway. Congratulations on being number one, by the way. That's
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We do our best. We absolutely do our best.
Our country is number one in the world. Our state is number one in the country. So, we are.
That's really saying something, yeah.
We're doing what we can here to keep the
COVID. If I can ask, is it like how you are you in Florida as well, Patty?
Yes, I'm in Orlando. Mike is in South Florida.
Okay, and is it like, do you guys leave the house much, or like what's it like right now?
Patty,
I I leave the house when I need to. I wear a mask, and to my area's credit, I'd say about an 85% ratio I see of people in public areas wearing masks. So maybe not. We're not giving out rewards like, say, Texas, where if you come in without a mask, you get a free meal.
Fair enough.
As some places are. And I have friends in Texas. We love Texas, but yeah.
But like Florida is like really, like the houses are fairly spacious and it's all AC anyway. So I remember when I've been there, I didn't want to leave out and go outside because it's too fucking hot.
Well, that's the problem is that I don't go many places. I go home, I come to the office, I go home, I come to the office.
And if you've seen Mike's office, you'll know why he doesn't need to leave.
So I've got like my own little fortress here, but not occasionally, but like my one thing is I'll drive through Starbucks and get, coffee or tea or something in the morning. But I really I'm not going anyplace. I'm not going out. And, you drive around down here and a lot of people aren't wearing masks. It's not, it's a little janky. It's, people, this is why it's spreading.
Yes.
I didn't mean to bum anybody out. I was just
no. Well, I asked you earlier, and please, for our audience that may not know, because I've heard you say that your country seems to have gotten a fairly decent handle on this.
Yeah, I would seem so. I mean, we locked down just as hitting Paddy's Day, and there was just before St. Patrick's Day, there was like a lot of people going out and in bars and stuff. I think because Italy is so close, that gave us a bit of a scare. So I think we locked down just before St. Patrick's Day, and I haven't not been to a pub in 3 months. Jonesing right now, but in comics wise, I don't go outside much anyway because I'm generally working all the time. But I think the fact that Ireland is a smaller island, we were able to kind of lock down and not. Yeah. It's different with America. You have so many states, and it's a lot more complicated, to be fair.
So, the word on the street is that you're a big Star Trek fan.
It's been known. I'm just trying to check. Do I have it? No, I don't. For once, don't have a Star Trek t-shirt on.
So what's Star Trek?
I'm tied between Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. I started watching The Next Generation because my mom was a big fan of the original series, so she was watching it. And I was, let me see, it was out in 87. So
you literally were the Next Generation in your family.
I was the Next Generation, yeah. But I think what's interesting is I was in my early teens when The Next Generation was on. And when Deep Space Nine started, I was in my mid to late teens, which of course is a great time to watch something that's a bit more I don't want to say cynical, but like complex and political, and
Yeah.
So I was just the right age to be watching Next Generation, and just the right age to be watching Deep Space Nine, and like that's the around season 4 or 5 Next Gen, and then Deep Space Nine started. So that was kind of prime time for me, I think.
Nice.
So when do we get the Declan Star Trek comic?
Man, I'd love to. I had a pitch one time for an O'Brien story, but it didn't work out. The problem is, like, the Star Trek stuff is so. I did some covers for the IDW Discovery a miniseries. So I just drew the ships, and I'm not really, I would say I'm known more for drawing kind of like organic stuff, like trees and rocks and things. I'm not really a technical guy, but man, I loved drawing those ships. They would be hard comics to draw, to be fair, because everything's generally very sleek and clean, which isn't my bag. But I definitely have I'd say if I did any, it would be a DS9 story, because that's I think Klingons, Cardassians, Jem'Hadar, they'd all be really fun to draw. I definitely have a DS9 story in me somewhere.
So the next time we do a Star Trek variant cover, I know who to talk to. Yeah,
do. Yeah, I just do it before I can write. Before I can say yes, I'll just have written it. I'm like,
we've done two covers so far. We did the Year 5 books, the Star Trek Year 5 books. So we did a cover with Shatner holding a treble, looking at it longingly for the Valentine's Day special, and then we did a photo. It's a photo cover, and then we did a photo cover with from the Minneapolis show with Shatner, with Kirk, Chekhov, Sulu, and Uhura, because we had those 4 in Minneapolis.
Oh, nice one. So actually, the guy who draws the Star Trek Year 5 comic is a friend of mine. He's another Irish guy, Stephen Thompson. He's excellent.
Yeah. But the next time we do a cover, it'll have to be an art cover, and we'll have to go to you.
Yeah, let me know. Like I'd be all over that.
Cool.
But anyway, sorry.
No, you raised it a point too, because one thing I love about your work is you have a very organic feel to it, and a case in point, your Man Thing is one of the best I've seen in decades.
Thanks,
man. Patty.
Yeah,
we discussed we're not going to talk about our artists' Man Things on this show.
I'm sorry. I withdraw the statement.
We got in trouble when we had the Giant Size Man Thing episode, and
well, there was
only because ours wasn't so giant size as advertised.
Well, I worked on Thunderbolts with Jeff Parker and Man Thing was in it. He was one of the most fun ones to draw, because he's just foliage in those eyes that peer out. He's great fun to draw.
So let's go back to the beginning of your Star Trek roots. What were the beginning of your comic book roots growing up?
Well, there weren't a lot of comics, like there weren't American comics available really here. The best comics I'd have access to were things like DuckTales and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, kind of licensed stuff, because we have newsagents here, so there will be like comics every week, like the B&O and Dandy. But I really got into, we also, like in the local library, had Asterix, and did have some kind of graphic novels, like the Frank Miller Batman and Daredevil stuff, although I was a little young at the time. But what happened was Panini UK used to do these, they started doing these reprints of American comics. So they had like 3 issues of Amazing Spider-Man collected in a kind of a hard stock cover, hard stock cover. So for the price of 1 comic, you could read 3 stories, which was great because I didn't have access to American comics, yet I was able to read them through reprints. So I ended up catching up on a lot. Like when I did get my hand on American comics, it was right at the time, just before the Age of Apocalypse and just like near the end of the Clone Saga. So like I didn't know what was going on,
God, yeah, that's a hell of a time to get on.
Yeah, but my first X-Men comic was issue 35, and it was Cyclops and Phoenix, which is fine. I knew those characters from the cartoon. And then the next issue had Sabretooth, Banshee, Jubilee, and Emma Frost. And I was like, what the hell is this? Like, where's Wolverine? So going from like being hardcore into the cartoons to but then that was also the kind of the cool part about it was I didn't know what it was. There was no Wikipedia. You couldn't just go online and figure it out. So you had to wait a month to read the next thing, and you and then with those reprints, I was able to like read comics from like 3 years previous. So it was kind of like I was slowly filling in the gap. Like there's always an argument that the comics need to be more accessible, and I appreciate that. But I do think one of the elements that's been lost is not knowing, and the only way to find out is like starting that collection and
going forward.
Yeah. Whereas now you can just look up anything and find out any, you don't. Do you need to read the Executioner song? You can just kind of go and look it up. It's not it's not the same at all. But I think a lot of people will end up just doing that, and you don't kind of have the hardcore people getting in the way they used to. But then again, there's so much media; it's impossible to keep track of everything.
Well, part of the fun, I think, when we were younger was that you jump in, and then you start at a certain point, and there's this history that goes back 20, 30, however many years, and all these stories have happened. So there's kind of that going back and having to find those. I mean, it's easier now with like the Marvel Unlimiteds and the DC app, and everything's accessible now.
Yeah, like I read Inferno on Comixology there a while ago, and like I knew the history of what happened because it affect with stuff you're reading later. There'll be the editor's note of what happened, or there'll be some reference to what happened. But I only read it like 6 months ago, so like it took me 20 years to actually read that story. But I mean, they weren't available in the same way. It's kind of a little like TV now. Like people are. I know somebody who's watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and their experience is so different to mine because I feel like I was so invested in it. Because if you watched an episode, that's it. It's the same with The Next Generation. When I was a kid, I had to get to the TV at a certain time because we didn't have reruns in the same way you guys did. If you didn't catch an episode, that's it. You don't see it. Now you see. Now I've seen. Years later, I've managed to catch up on things like that. But because you can stream anything. But back, I'm pretty sure I probably cried a couple of times because I didn't get to watch an episode of.
Well, Star Trek Next Generation, when it came out, we used to have to follow the TV guide, and if you missed an episode, you'd have to wait for that rerun, and you would have to wait like a half a year.
Yeah,
it'd be like another 6 months.
Yeah, you had. I mean, they only started rerunning like Star Trek probably. I mean, Sky One used to air it, and they used to have it on every single day, but they had to get to season 4 before they started doing that.
Yeah.
And that was a new thing for me. Like, so if I would remember, I'd have like the compendiums, and I'd see all the episodes and know the ones I missed. And I have to make sure I get home so I can catch that episode that I missed 2 years earlier. Especially one there was a banned episode of Next Generation over here. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
Yeah, refresh my memory. I remember hearing it.
I can't remember the name of it. I used to remember the name of it. It was the one where this terrorist kidnaps Beverly Crusher.
Right.
That was banned over here for years.
In context, I can.
Well, yeah, because there was a data specifically mentions that Ireland was unified at a certain date, and that was just way too contentious to air like over here. So I mean, they did eventually. Years later, they did. It's not like I only saw it yesterday. Like they did air it eventually after the peace process. I guess it was,
Curiously enough, I know that I do remember that episode rankled some people because the character in that compared George. Well, George Washington was a terrorist, if you think about it, and that he's not entirely wrong in a historical context to it, but contemporarily, I remember back in the day that rankled a few of my more patriotic people.
Well, I mean, any stories about terrorism are complicated because people have causes for different reasons, and morality. Look, I mean, that's why they're compelling stories, because there's moral gray areas there. One man's freedom fighters, another man's terrorists, and I mean, that's why they're complex. I didn't think about how it would be contentious in America, but I can see it now, actually. Yeah.
But Deep Space Nine is more of that kind of storytelling.
Like, Kira was a tough one for me because even in the context of, like, say, what happened in Ireland, we have politicians that used to be in the IRA, and that's a little uncomfortable. But, while, I wouldn't be delighted about that, at the same time, these are also the people that made the peace process happen. So, it's very hard to kind of have absolute moralizations on things when, like, the reality is so much more complex.
Yeah. Very much so.
Who would have thought we'd be talking about this, huh?
This is where we go, man. This is we can go all over the place. Should like last week we spent 2 hours just.
Oh God, that was a whole other thing.
Yeah, but it was good though. It was
Sure.
We talk very well. I'm very proud of how we talk about these things, and maybe not everybody agrees, but the important thing is that we're talking and we're trying to find more ground.
Yeah, because also it's very hard for people to. I don't know if you guys like this, but like I like listening to things that are honest and unfiltered, and we're all very trained to be very filtered right now, and understandably so, because you say the wrong thing, it can go really, really badly, and it's tough because I think we all notice when someone's being very restrained in what they're saying, and it makes for a very, very, very sanitized and well, dead conversation, And,
also, what are we going to talk to you? We know you're a phenomenal artist. We know.
Well, I don't know that.
I do.
Oh, you are.
I do. People know. So people know who you are from your art, but they don't know you. And that's the thing is, what's interesting more now today than when we all started. When we were kids, we didn't have a way to really learn who the artists and writers were, other than in the back of the comics where there was like a a little soapbox, Stan soapbox kind of a thing, or the DC Currents, what have you, or going to conventions to meet with people and see them. But people know who you are. They know your art. They see your they've. And anybody who's going to watch or listen to this has probably familiar with your work. Moon Knight, Punisher, Wolverine, Deadpool, what have you. But they don't know who you are. Probably.
Well, they were lucky. Now they're going to find out. I know. I mean, I think it's weird. It's gone the other way in that, like, people know too much sometimes. I think well,
that's fair too.
I don't need to know what, like also you mentioned that you were talking to some actors from Star Trek before we started, and I'm weird. Like I try and meet every comic book creator that I grew up, loving. But when it comes to Star Trek actors, I've had opportunity and I've balked loads of times. For some reason, I just, I mean, of course they're actors and they're celebrities, and I think it's a more bit of an Irish thing where I don't want to bother them, even though they're there to kind of be bothered. I guess like that's the point of them going, but I don't necessarily need to know what Jonathan Frakes thinks of Trump or whatever. Insert political thing here, there was a day where we just didn't know anything, and that was fine, I think we're in a weird stage where everyone's kind of branding themselves and sharing so much that it's. I just find myself sometimes going like, I don't want to know this stuff, I don't want to know this person's opinions, so I just want to read the work. But some people are different, and I do think in the early days of social media, it was really great because you did have a connection that was kind of, it wasn't this close, but it was this close. It's like, I can say something to you and you might respond to me, and that would make my day. But now, like, unless I'm telling you that, I'm going to rip your face apart, like the level of communication is so, I think people used to be so grateful for it now, but now it's like, oh, well, I can just use this to just basically say anything I want now, which
there's a fine line.
But it's unfortunate it's kind of gotten to that stage. I would never, ever, ever say something like that to somebody. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a generational thing too, where people aren't seeing, like you said, at conventions, you go, like, no one has ever been horrible to me at a convention, because someone's standing right in front of you and they're talking to you. Everyone's going to be civil and respectful in person, and it's one of the reasons I like conventions, or these things that we used to call conventions. But sorry, I just went off on a total rant there.
No, we're good.
But on that point, I'll say that when we were younger, I know at least I did, I used to read like Comics Interview or Amazing Heroes was another big one over here, where they would talk to creators. And I always wanted to read when they were talking to creators and find out, like, I think it's interesting that you were a fan, right? So you're a fan and you're talking about your fan experience and how what you started reading and how you were reading the reprints, the Panini books, and then you get into the X-Men. I think it's ironic that your first X-Men book is, or their first couple, you get Banshee, very very Irish. By the way, I love Banshee, and I always thought that was just they just always screw up that character.
Yeah, I've made no secret. I'd love to do Banshee because I'd like to scrape off all the Patty Wackery.
Yeah,
because there's a really cool character there.
I agree.
There's so much to his history that you could like. There's loads you could go. You could go there with them, but who knows someday.
But and then also the fact that you're a Star Trek guy, and I think it gives fans a way to connect with creators sometimes to know that there are things that are connecting points, right? There are connecting bridges.
What I think it's interesting things that's happened in Ireland in the last few years is there's a lot more Irish artists who've made a career for themselves, like Stephen Thompson, Star Trek Year 5, Will Sliney in the Star Wars books, Stephen Byrne, Stephen Mooney. Like there's a lot of artists who've come up in the last few years. I think what helped us is that seeing somebody else from the same background as you be successful was encouragement. Because when I was a kid and I told somebody I wanted to draw comics, they were like, "Yeah, go on, good luck with that." It was. I might as well have said I wanted to be Superman. Like it just made no sense because that was like that happens in America, not here. Cop yourself on,
or even in England, but not so much in Ireland, right? Like it's a. There's
there was a history of it in England for sure. So the answer, like culturally, generally, if you want to be a success, you had to go to Ireland, you had to go to England or America. Now I was more interested in America because I grew up on American TV. I loved all that stuff, like the cartoons and the films and TV. So I always kind of looked at America more, and I there's a level of kind of Britishness that we just kind of grow up with it. Like there's I've loads of English friends and British friends, and they're great. But
no, we know that American TV is the best. You don't have to tell us an American movie. We know. We're number one.
Of course, number one. I forgot. But I think when I was a kid, like, and I was reading all the superhero stuff, I found Preacher, which was written by Garth Ennis.
Yep.
And Hitman, that was written by Garth and drawn by John McCrae, and they were from Northern Ireland, which isn't the same as where I'm from. I'm from the South. But knowing that there were guys from the country, from the same island as me, that were like killing it in America, kind of was like, oh well, if they can do it, maybe I can too. I don't know if I would have pursued it had I known that it was possible, because everyone just assumes it's America. But if you look at the industry, I mean, I would say maybe half of the industry is really Americans. Like there's so many British, Irish, Spanish. There's so many creators are from all over the world. But growing up, you don't realize that. Again, you don't have so much information. I followed Andy Kubert from X-Men, and then it was Carlos Pacheco. And for all I knew, he was American. Like, how would I know? But I do think that another reason, when you're having these kind of interviews and you realize people come from they can come from council estates or, single parent family or whatever. It's not, creators are just normal people too when they started at the bottom as well.
It's always good to know that it's somebody with that commonality.
So I think I have no idea where I'm landing on this stuff. Don't let me talk because I'll just.
No, it's okay. I mean, you were talking about John McCrae. That was I remember his Hitman, but also his work on Demon.
Demon, yeah.
I think that Demon run is one of the best runs for that character of all time. When they brought back the haunted tank and the crazy American general.
That might have been some of the first DC stuff I ever read, to be honest. Like other than Batman, I think it might have been. But also, I was just the right age too. Like when they started doing Hitman, I was 14, 15. So like you're just the right age for like the level of puerile humor that would seep into the book, and I was just the right generation to be reading that stuff as it was coming out.
So Bog Bodies.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, Bog Bodies. See how prepared I am? I have a copy right here. This is Bog Bodies is a standalone graphic novel. It's a kind of a follow up to a book I did a couple of years ago called Savage Town, which that was based on loosely based on a real story, but these Irish gang, these gangs that were in a city called Limerick that I used to live in. And Bog Bodies is a kind of a follow up to that, in that it's another Irish crime story, but it's more of a more of a moody horror book where these gangsters are stuck in the Dublin mountains and need to find their way out. I would say if you like things like Stray Bullets or Criminal, like those would be huge inspirations. I love those books. Like they're the comics I love crime books, and so not having the time to draw them, I didn't want not being able to draw something to stop me from telling a story, if you know what I mean. So sure. I wrote it, and I had a friend of mine called Gavin Fullerton. He's done covers for Terminator versus Transformers and various stuff at IDW. He did a graphic novel called Bags for Boom Studios as well. So he's kind of a newer artist, and I really like his stuff. So I said, well, it's a cool thing about Creator Comics is you can just talk to somebody you like and go, hey, you want to make something? So we did, and yeah, that went on sale May. Was it May? I can't remember because it was supposed to come out just before COVID hit, but it came out last month, I think, about a month ago now. And yeah, everyone's been really nice about it. I've got like a rake of great quotes from like Jeff Lemire and Brian Bendis, and yeah, loads of people said really, really nice things. So I'm delighted. I kind of wish I had drawn it now so I could take all the credit.
So that brings us to, most people know you as an artist, but now you're writing. We have somebody on the side here, confidential email, wants to know what it was like writing Batman.
I didn't write Batman. I haven't written.
You didn't write Batman?
No, I worked. I was drawing the backup stories on All-Star Batman with Scott Snyder. So that's I was drawing that book. That's kind of the funny thing is, I'll talk to some comics people, and I'll say, "Oh, I drew this," and they'll go, "Did you write it?" I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, okay." But I talk to regular people who don't read comics, and I'll show them, say, Bog Bodies, and I'm like, "Oh, I made this comic." And they'll go, "Oh, did you draw it?" And this time I have to go, "No, I wrote it." And they're like, "Oh, okay." So,
but you are writing. You have written other things.
Yeah. I wrote Deadpool versus Old Man Logan and James Bond and Savage Town, and I wrote and drew a Nick Fury serial that went through. There was during Civil War II event, they had this Choosing Sides anthology book, and it was all these different stories. But I did a Nick Fury chapter in every single issue, so that was like a big, I think like 50-page story, something like that, 40-page maybe. But I've done both. I've written, I've drawn, and I've written and drawn, and I've colored. So
what was the James Bond story?
It was actually it was kind of Irish based. It was a one shot about James Bond's boss, where he went back to Belfast and kind of dealt with an old case from. My imagining was that if he's of the age to be James Bond's boss, he and the research I found that he'd been in the army, so chronologically it made sense that he would have served in the British Army during the Troubles. So it's kind of a story that takes place now and in the past of something that happened that he's trying to kind of deal with. So and also kind of show old troubled Belfast with kind of new, like cosmopolitan. Like I've been to Belfast; it's beautiful. If you look at stuff from like the Troubles, it's insane. It looks like a completely different place. So it kind of hops back and forth from there. And I wrote that, and PJ Holden drew that. And he's from Belfast, so it's super authentic, so I've just been dabbling, doing a bit of one, doing a bit of the other. The one thing I won't do is lettering because I hate it. I tried it once. I'm like, never again. This is too.
The unsung heroes of the business.
Yeah, exactly.
You also have an art book out now.
Yeah, I do. Again, check this out. See, I'm so prepared. This came out in January. So as of actually 2 weeks ago, I started at Marvel 10 years and 2 weeks ago. So Marvel have been doing these really cool art books for different artists. They've got like J. Scott Campbell. Who else do they have? Asad Ribic, Ali Granov, Chris Pachalo, and me for some reason. But so they've got this really nice collection of it kind of goes through all of my stuff from starting on Thunderbolts to my cover work to why am I looking at this? I've seen this. I should be showing you.
remember earlier when I said that you know people are fans of your stuff, and you're like, I don't know, they wouldn't be making art books of your stuff.
That's true. Yeah. See, I have like while I am a bit of a pretentious wanker, I still do have a lot of like we're not raised to believe in ourselves over here.
A little bit of humility.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of what's the term? It's sit down and shut up is kind of is what we're raised on. But if any fans of Moon Knight, I will say it's the one place where I got to show a lot of process stuff, so you can see there's like a lot of cover designs. Because that didn't fit the actual trade. So if you're a Moon Knight fan, I'd say definitely get this because it's got lots of stuff that was never able to show.
Very cool.
Yeah, no, it's a really nice production. I'm really chuffed with it, and because I am ridiculously pretentious, it's nice to say I have an art book. Yeah.
On that Moon Knight run, did you design his suit look?
Yes and no. I wish I could take full credit for it, but I was doing that with Warren Ellis, and he had done an issue of Secret Avengers where Moon Knight was in it, and then in one issue he was wearing a suit. So it was a kind of like that. So when we were doing the book, he suggested I could just do something a totally different look, but I really liked the crescent moon on the forehead. So I basically tailored it a bit more. I just made it a little bit more dapper. And I gave him little things like crescent moons on his cufflinks. I'm actually doing a commission at the moment where I have to look at an old issue. I'm like, I actually get to go like, I did a good job on that actually.
Oh, you did. And from my perspective, the proof of the pudding is how fast I see the cosplays from when the issues drop. And it was, I think we did a show it was like maybe 2 months after that was in circulation. And I think at our last show, I saw 2 or 3 suited Moon Knights, and even doing the poses too of the affixing and the adjusting.
That's cool. I mean, actually the superhero version of that. I remember there was a real trend of people making cosplayable costumes, like that the fans could make easy cosplays out of. And I remember my attitude was F that. Like because I don't think costumes should be something that are. It's kind of a conversation people have about the costumes. Is they're not meant to be worn. They're meant to be looked at. Like they're visual tools, you know. And I think a lot of costumes that are designed for cosplayers in mind detracts from the visual aspect that they're supposed to have. Not all the time, but I think that happens sometimes. So Moon Knight, I made a point of like, I'm going to design a costume that they're not going to be able to cosplay, because the suit version was there, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why I did this. Yeah, that was the superhero version was this kind of more armored plated black and white version. Mm-hmm. And the way the boots are, the way the chest plate is, I'm like, this would be very difficult to cosplay. So good luck, cosplayers. Now I don't mean to sound like a jerk. I was trying to maintain the visual and not the practicality.
And here's the thing about it, from the perspective.
But straight away that they cosplayed it. I was like, bloody hell, fair play.
Because it's a challenge. It's their way of saying I did the undoable. You know, when artists raise the bar with designs, cosplayers they love to chew on that. That's a Mount Everest for them.
Yeah, I have to say I have way more respect to. I mean, not that I wouldn't have respect for the suit version, but even the bone skull. Where's that one? Yeah, it's at the back of the book here. The bone armor version. Yeah. I remember like good luck with that. And I've seen photos of it. I've only ever met one person who did the bone skull costume, but my jaw was on the floor. I was amazed with it. Like it's crazy. And you're right. I guess it's a good test of how popular or something kind of really hits. And it's kind of really the only time that's happened for me, because everything else I'd done at Marvel was like something I came onto. You know, the Deadpool book existed, and I did an arc of that. Venom existed. I did a couple of arcs of that. You know, generally I ended up being like a guy who was put on a book, which is fine. You know, I was happy to, but Moon Knight was the one chance where I got to like show what I could do. And I think
it's always great. It's always great when they give you a book and nobody's looking. They kind of just you go and do your thing. And so when you're on something not as high profile.
Yeah, but I mean, I was doing a book with Warren, and he was known, of course, but he hadn't done comics in a while, I think. So nobody really knew what to expect. And it's not like Moon Knight is a character like, say, Captain America, which are people would be very protective of. Like,
right.
There's definitely hardcore Moon Knight fans, but also, there's people who did not have a clue who Moon Knight was. So there was something liberating about being able to do something very different with that character.
I refer to Moon Knight as Marvel's version of Doctor Who, in the sense that every iteration keeps the name and keeps the moon aspect to it, and otherwise, creatively, they've taken it in wildly different directions to varying degrees of successes. But everybody kind of has their favorite version. But fans do tend to go, okay, what's this artist writer team gonna go do next? What's they do next? And I think you and Ellis created the David Tennant version of Moon Knight.
I like it. Oh, that works with me.
People
do ask me like,
the Kevin Monet version was the Tom Baker. You guys created the David Tennant version.
I like that. I'm gonna use that. People do ask like what my favorite version of Moon Knight is, and I'm like, mine. Like I'm not gonna be pretend to be humble about it. Like I'm delighted how that book came out, and I remember being worried about what people were going to think, but I would prefer do something and take some chances rather than be too worried about the reaction and play it safe. There's so much playing it safe for understandable reasons, but like if I was going to do a Warren Ellis Moon Knight book, my feeling was try everything. Like this is the time to just go balls out, and just every idea I have, throw it out there. And I mean, it was exhausting. It was a tough book. Like I remember the mushroom one, the one where he goes into a guy's mind's dreamscape, and like there's a planet of mushroom head, and it just nearly killed me. It nearly killed me. But I'm still so proud of that arc. And it's weird. I think. Now, that book came out in 2004, so we're like 6 years later, and now I'm meeting artists who are kind of starting out, like really cool artists on new books, and like they keep mentioning how much Moon Knight influenced them. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like it was only 6 years ago, and it was only 6 issues, but I'm really like, it's great that something so short and sharp had such a kind of seemed to make a mark for a lot of people. Like it wasn't Avengers numbers, but it seemed to really.
Oh, you made a mark on Moon Knight. I think Stephen Platt made a mark on Moon Knight. He only did a few issues. He didn't really do a whole lot.
2.
Yeah, was it just 2?
2. He did 2, and then he got poached by Image back when that meant something.
So I mean, and then Sienkiewicz, had a run on the book, but wasn't the longest run.
No, but I remember looking at Sienkiewicz's run, and I've said this a few times, so I hope it doesn't get back to him, because I don't mean it disparagingly at all. But like parts of it really, really sucked, and parts of it really, really amazing. And looking over everything he did, talking about taking chances, he took chances that totally fell flat in his face, and other chances which totally were compelling and original and new. And if you look at that run, it's amazing to see somebody just, they weren't going off in their sketchbook and trying to make things perfect. He was experimenting on the page every single day, and it worked and it didn't work, and it didn't work and it didn't work, until it got to a place where everything was just electricity and fireworks. And everyone remembers the fireworks, but I think it's so interesting to go back and actually see where he learned how to adjust and become the artist that he became. It's fascinating to watching an artist evolve on the page, especially today when I think most artists are so worried about how their work's going to be seen, about how it affects their brand or what have you. Having to turn around work as fast as Sienkiewicz had to back then, I think is probably what made him who he is now, which is, an absolute giant.
Well, you're absolutely right on this Moon Knight run, because that was his adolescence. When he started, he was the world's greatest Neil Adams clone.
Yeah, he looks like Neil Adams in the first.
Absolutely, and the X-Men annual with Dracula and everything else, it was all pure Neil Adams, and that's what got him in the business. And Moon Knight started. He had to take those risks in Moon Knight to get him to the New Mutants, which made guys like me and Mike lifelong fans, and pulled us in, and made him.
I don't know if it would be possible to really do that anymore, because people's memories are a lot shorter, and your currency as an artist is only as good as the last page you drew. So if I went off and did a wacky style on a book, people turn off that straight away. Whereas, I think I was talking to Steve McNiven about this once, in that he, I don't want to misrepresent what he said now, but it was something along the lines of, we're encouraged to maintain a style because that's what people know us for, and if we change from that style, we worry that people will stop supporting us. And I think there's an argument there. I personally like how I draw, and I'm not looking to radically change things, but I'm always trying to take chances to keep myself kind of
well, at the end of the day, you're an artist, right? So I think as an artist,
yeah, you're not a picture making machine, and
right.
Sometimes things will work and sometimes they won't. But there is an awful lot of pressure to be perfect, especially when there's so much great stuff out there,
But it's, you gotta, I think sometimes you want to spread your wings, right? You want to try a thing.
Sure.
And so you can't, you don't ever want to put as much as the corporate wonks would like to just have you. This is what we want. This is the brand. I think that, you have to give an artist some creativity to try and find new ways.
My point of view would be, like, if you're going to work with a brand, like, the company should let them bend the brand as much as they can without breaking it. I mean, you can't break it, because it's not yours. You have to put that toy back in the box. But it's by letting creators experiment with characters, which is what, like, if you look at, say, Marvel, the people know the most successful version of Ghost Rider is probably the one that was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that was a really left field version of them to make a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Marvel, I remember hearing about Ms. Marvel and going like, oh, that's I haven't heard of that before. Like, that's an unusual risk for Marvel to take, and look how successful that's been. Like, we don't remember the things that haven't worked, and it's one thing I do kind of miss about Marvel in the early 2000s, where there's, the Demon Punisher from Marvel Knights, like, didn't work, and we kind of forget about that. But that's also what got us. What got us to Quesada Daredevil, Yeah, but that's fine. I have no problem with that. Or I remember Rick Remender did that Frankencastle, that a lot of people hated. And I thought it was, like, I love the Garth Ennis Punisher stuff, but Frankencastle was just a cool idea, the toy went back in the box. It was fine. Ultimates, Next Wave, like, so much stuff is. Some of the more refreshing things are when the companies. Sorry, go on.
Next Wave is such a great book.
Oh, it's amazing, but that's my point. Is I think some things you need to maintain, but the experimentation that creators can put on books is what keeps those brands alive. A lot of brands have died out because they've just kept them the same and don't take any chances. And I think it makes sense. You need to take a certain amount of risk. It won't always work, definitely, but when it does work, bloody hell.
And as far as artists go, guys like Keith Giffen, or you got a guy who just kept changing his style, and some fans liked it, some fans didn't, but he's still around.
Yeah, it's tough. There's some artists who haven't changed at all, and I'm fans of, and I find that I'm not buying their stuff anymore. And it's not because I don't like their stuff anymore. It's because I think I already know what it looks like before I've seen it. I don't want to say any names because it's not fair, and they're all far more successful than I. But there's some people you're like, I think some fans would love to see a certain artist on Spider-Man. But like, I've seen that artist on Spider-Man for 20, 30, 40, 50 issues, and I loved it. But I'd prefer to see something new, personally. But I know I'm not representative of most readers. I think most readers most fans, I think, they think they know what they want, and if you give that to them, they're bored. And if you give them something that they're not expecting, first they're annoyed, but then they're excited and interested, and then they're talking about the thing. And it's a fine line of, I think, of moving things in ways that keep things interesting, and giving. I got a big fan of, like I said, like Buffy or whatever. And when they'd kill a character off, I was so upset. But I don't want. But that's what kept me compelled,
Yeah.
if it was up to me, you'd never change what those characters. I mean, same thing like as a fan, the way they're doing all this new Trek stuff. I'm not a big fan of a lot of the newer stuff, to be honest. But like I try to think of how I'd approach it, and the danger would be is that I'd just do exactly what they did before because that's what I liked, and that's not good either.
Well,
doing fan art of the thing you liked is not the best way to push those ideas forward.
I've always said that the challenge creatively, from a business standpoint, if you're talking about artistic work like comics or TV shows as something you're still supposed to sell and make a profit off of, is that it all boils down to this. You should always listen to the fans. You should listen to the audience. Listen to what they want, but then translate that into what do they need. Don't give them what they want, because that's a trap that then they'll expect it all the time. But determine they're saying they want this, but what do they need? What are they really saying that they need? Don't enunciate, and that's the sweet spot. When you can get in that zone, that's where you do it.
Yeah, I think I read a David Simon quote once that was something along the lines of, the audience says it wants dessert, but what it needs is dinner.
Yes.
And I think it's great because you can have dessert all day long, but it's not going to sustain you. And just because you think you want something doesn't mean that's actually what you're going to.
And
I'd even use Trek as an example. There's things I didn't want them to do, and they didn't do it, and I think they should have done it. I think I was wrong.
And I'll give you an historical example of that out of comics. I got turned off of X-Men when every other cover was always Wolverine looking tough and grim and everything else. And Wolverine was the dessert, and they were pushing it too much. And for me, the book was X-Men, and I wanted to see the other characters. In which case, Wolverine was that cog that worked better. He's the bad boy of the group, but here's a bunch of really cool other interesting characters.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough. I mean, because I'm not in the boardroom at Marvel, so I'm not part of the conversations. But when Deadpool was the hottest,
we're talking 30 years ago. So
sure. But I mean, I think it's. But sorry, I'm just clarifying because I'm going to use a more current example. But I know that Deadpool blew up there a few years ago, and there were so many Deadpool books, and you could argue that it weakened the brand by having so much. But that's what the audience wanted, and I think there's a balance between making the content that people want and also oversaturating the market with just this one thing. And like that Wolverine example of the 90s or the 80s, you can have too much of a good thing for sure. But it's hard to stop when everybody seems to be happy because books are selling like crazy,
I will say this, and I can't believe I'm defending Deadpool because it's a character that I'm not a fan of. But the thing about the Deadpool is that you would have the books that had him in the normal Marvel universe, but then you'd have the other books at the same time that kind of had him in his own little bubble continuity where anything can happen and things were crazy and more comedic, and it wasn't. You weren't always supposed to think of it as the regular Marvel universe, which DC has been doing as well with Harley Quinn. There's there's the DC universe Harley Quinn, but then there's Harley Quinn in her own title, and what goes on in there is a little bit left of center of the rest of it. So,
what do you think of that? Do you like that, or do you not like it?
I think it works. I think because in that way, as a fan, it gives me the excuse to create my own headcanon in the sense of, okay, I could tolerate this version of this character running around the Marvel Universe, but if there's this other wackier version, I can shunt that off in my own headcanon and say, that doesn't matter.
I'm really enjoying a lot of the DC Black Label stuff.
So, yeah, see that's more my taste, I would say. I wouldn't really be too bothered with the ongoing continuity stuff personally. Right. But I mean, I do think there's if there's two audiences to be served, then why not serve them both? It doesn't have to be
absolutely. And there's a place for Batman in a monthly periodical floppy every month serialized, right? There's an audience for that. I have really been enjoying some of the Batman stuff, Joker stuff, Harley Quinn stuff, Superman stuff that's come out with the Black Label because here's a story, it's in its own little world, its own little continuity, it's a story. And it has an artist or writer that gets you be a little bit more creative.
Well, honestly, I mean, that type of stuff appeals to me more now. I'm never going to be a guy who does 50 issues of a book. I'm just not that guy. Like I stretch myself too much into different projects, and as an artist, I've been trying to take more control over my work, and being the guy that draws 50 issues of a book tends to not really have that kind of control, say. Spending a year on a Batman or a Green Lantern book where you kind of get to take some of your own creative decisions is far more appealing to me as a creator. And as a reader, like, I don't really read Green Lantern, but if, say, Jason Aaron and Wes Craig did a Green Lantern book, I would read the crap out of that, and that would get me reading a character I don't normally read. And, maybe I won't go back in afterwards, but maybe I will. And I think these kind of more standalone, evergreen approaches to characters, I think they seem to be the ones that keep selling as well. Like, talking to my local comic shop, they're the ones that kind of keep selling year to year.
Exactly. And you brought up Green Lantern, which is a funny thing because, Grant Morrison's writing it right now. And I think that's a unique, way of handling it. And so, but, from a comic store perspective, from a selling perspective, from a, retailing, the books that are the ones that sell year on, year out, 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, are those, very contained stories that tell a story, have a beginning, a middle, and an end, by some, really good creators, and they could just sit on a shelf in a collection. They can make an absolute, they can make a, hardcover, they can make a soft cover. And that's the stuff that everybody wants on there. But
also, it's good to have, I'm sure comic book stores and publishers benefit from having a Batman comic every month. Like, and I'm totally important.
And there's
I wouldn't want to do that book personally because it would just, it would just be too much. I wouldn't be able to hack it anymore. But that other idea, the different approach, like, that's something I could do. And I think that's great. There should be, these characters are malleable and you can serve different audiences. I mean, especially now, I think the audience is diversifying, not like in how they want to read the content, be it digital or be it hardcover, be it trade paperback, be it single issues, be it short stories. Like, and I think the publishers, I mean, maybe they are, maybe they aren't catching on to it, but I think, you can't just make the content for one audience anymore because you're leaving so much of the rest of the audience unsatisfied.
Well, the bookstore market has just exploded in the last 15 years, and I definitely, the publishers see that their graphic novel sales or trade paperback sales from the bookstores are important, and bookstores aren't selling floppies; they're selling collections. So I think that floppies are selling. Batman sells, but the graphic novels and the trades, they're selling to, like you said, some of the same market and some completely different.
Yeah, I think that's the way. I mean, not that you asked the question, but I think that's the way the industry should be going forward. Is diversifying how the content's read and serving audiences that want to read a certain way. Like, it's interesting since COVID hit that, like, orders for Bog Bodies went up over the COVID period. I thought they were going to go down because no one was going to go to a comic book shop, but people were desperate to read a book. Like,
people are buying online on Amazon and having stuff delivered to their house.
Yeah, so I don't think we would have seen that coming. I think the argument is that nobody's going to no one's going to go to comic shop anymore. Well, my cat.
So yeah,
I left my cat outside.
My lap, yeah.
But and I mean, a lot of comic shops are having it tough, but I know some comic shops are actually doing quite well now because I think people have been without comics for a few months and they're desperate they really want to start reading them again, or they've been waiting or dying to read them again. So it's interesting, like, that COVID has caused so much havoc and problems, but has also kind of provided different kind of avenues. And like, you wouldn't be doing this if not for
right.
What happened with conventions,
Right, we'd be gearing up for our Raleigh show in 2 weeks. That isn't going to happen now, and so now we do this weekly thing to keep the conversation about comics going with our people.
If you don't mind me asking, like, how have these events gone for you?
Good. I mean, it's varying degrees of success, but we're building. And we're
this one's the best. Clearly, this is your best one so far.
Clearly, this is the best. we're doing this. We're doing some stuff with celebrities. Heather does a show on Mondays with wrestlers and musicians, and we're reaching our audience, and we're putting out stuff to keep everybody going. And we'll get back to shows one day when it's safe and we can all leave the house. And in the meantime, we're not gonna hide under a rock.
Yeah. I mean, I do wonder what the next show is going to be like, because I've talked to some other pros, and it's like I'm just going to go nuts. Like the idea, like the last show I was at was a show in not Raleigh.
Was it Richmond?
Richmond, yeah. That's one of the last times I was outside.
Yeah, that was the week before we did the shutdown here.
Yeah.
It was just beforehand, which is mad. Like it feel like I literally haven't been outside since, and that was another country. But like the idea of doing a show it would be hard. I wonder when, one, they'll start doing them, and two, when people will start feeling comfortable, because pubs are opening here in Ireland now soon. I'm dying to go, but I don't know if I will.
I think we really need a vaccine. I think
we do, but I don't know. Like that could be years.
I think that until you get a vaccine, it's going to be very difficult to have a real big show, and if you do anything, it's going to be very small comparatively. And I think international travel is going to be really limited. I think there's a lot of things that come into play.
I would say maybe the idea of getting to see people in person again. I have a feeling people were getting a bit jaded about it. You would do signings and people kind of, it's like, because personal appearances are great when you're looking to say promote something like, say, Bog Bodies available now. But
it'll be a little bit more special, yes.
I think people will there'll be a newfound appreciation for like in-person contact again, because travel will be like I said, it's actually kind of crazy when you think of how easy travel was.
Yeah.
As of three months ago. So
not anymore.
Sorry?
Not anymore.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. But I know I'm optimistic. Things need to it can't happen for a while, but I'm optimistic when things do get back to some kind of way where you can maybe book a place 6 months down the line and not have to think that the world is going to change in between now and then. But I'm optimistic when things move again like that. It'll be there'll be so much joy associated with it.
So speaking of shameless self-promotion, I'd be remiss if your art rep Paolo was supposed to be on here tonight, but he had to go take care of something, and I'd be remiss if I didn't plug for him. You've been doing commissions because there's no convention, so you're doing commissions from home.
Yeah, which I pretty much just stopped doing, to be honest. I would do commissions for shows. I would do them at home and then go to shows, and I liked that. That system was fine for me because I was able to manage it. But now, in the last few months, well, also because projects have kind of become more uncertain. I've been doing a lot more commissions. So, if you're interested, get onto Cadence. I had a very limited closed window, but it's opening a lot more in the last 3 months. But
so this is one of your recent Batmans.
Yeah, I actually didn't want to give that one away. I was so happy with it. It's weird. Sometimes you just do a drawing and it just clicks, But I posted that online, and I got I think the most likes I've ever gotten on an image before. But I sent that to the guy last week, and I was like, I wish I didn't have to give this one away, but he paid for it. So, but yeah, I'm working on a Moon Knight one at the moment. I have a couple of Venom ones.
Here's one of your Moon Knights.
Yeah, and that one is a A4. That's like roughly you don't have A4 in America, but like what is it, 11 by 8? I tend to only do those, but I think there's a Daredevil one there that's actually cover size. I decided to do some.
I'll pull that up next.
Okay. Well, those are great. Those are fairly handy to do, but I tried out doing a cover one because I had more time, I ended up really enjoying it. They're more expensive, but
here's your insane Daredevil.
Oh crap! That's awesome.
yeah, I really well. My bucket list is to do Daredevil at Marvel, so that was me going, okay, this is what, like, if anybody at Marvel sees this, then they'll know I'd love to do something like this.
All right, so whoever's listening, I need you to email Marvel. And
en masse, like everybody go. We need a Daredevil. We need a Declan Shalvey Daredevil.
Daredevil.
It's my. There's not a lot of characters I'm dying to do. Like there's characters I would enjoy doing, no problem. But like Batman at DC, like a proper, like 100-page story, and Daredevil as well. I'd love to do like a 10-issue maxi series, write and draw it. There's not a lot of jewels there for me, but that's right at the top.
I could be remembering it wrong, but I want to say the first time we met.
Hang on, Patty. Here's one more Moon Knight.
Oh yeah, that one turned out. I'm only showing Moon Knight ones, but I tend to get asked for a lot of them. My running joke now is I've drawn Moon Knight more times out of the book than I threw him in it. But it's been a few years, so.
So for anyone who wants anything, it's cadencecomic.art.com is your rep's website, and you can get it through that website, cadencecomic.art.com.
Yeah, give him a shout and we'll figure it out. I came up with the tagline. I'm gonna.
Were you gonna ask Declan?
I want to ask. We did a big panel that you were a part of, and I could be remembering this wrong, but did you admit a fondness for DC's Hawkman?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't have a fondness for Hawkman.
Okay, I remember that one wrong.
Too many feathers to draw. No, I can't say.
He's a tricky character.
I'm not a big DC fan in all of the Silver Age stuff. I mean, I love Nightwing. I love all the Batman stuff. Superman as well. Actually, I have a Superman commission to do, and the choice was X-Men or Superman, and I love X-Men like crazy, but no one ever asks me to draw Superman. So that's actually a character I'd love to do as well. I mean, Batman's kind of obvious, but
I publish that when you're done with it. I'd love to see.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna maybe next week probably I'll do it. But I'm looking forward to that because it's like so those Moon Knight commissions are great. If all I was ever asked to do were Moon Knight commissions, I'd get annoyed fast because you just don't draw the same thing. But sometimes those things that nobody asked for they're actually more interesting challenges because it's more exciting to draw something that you.
It's like John Byrne. If you ask John Byrne to do, John Byrne does these amazing commissions. I don't know if you've seen him.
No.
But he does these ridiculously gorgeous commissions, and but if you ask him for Wolverine, he charges quite a bit more. And
fair enough, man. I don't know. If I was thinking of being an older artist, I would absolutely do the same thing. I know there's some artists who charge crazy money for signatures and stuff, and I'm personally not down with that. But if I was an older creator, I get it. You've only got so many signatures in you.
Yeah.
I'm 38 now, and I'm trying to imagine what it like. I was in my 60s, because you guys know conventions are exhausting. They're a lot of work, and you're not just going to a place. There's a level of performance to it. You're talking to people. You're trying to present your best self to people. After 3 or 4 days of it, you're not.
Mike's in the central. He's on the bridge on his captain's chair, trying to keep in control. I'm running around from stage to stage doing all kinds of stuff. But you're at your table. And I don't envy whether it's comic book talent, anime talent, artist alley talent. I commend everybody that just has good table skills, because that's something that a lot of people don't develop. You kind of need to.
Yeah, you got to learn them. I remember the first convention I ever did. I was 25 maybe, and I'd done a graphic novel for a UK market. It was it was a Frankenstein adaptation, and I was really happy that I'd done it, but I also felt so bad about a lot of the pages. I didn't think they were good anymore, and people were coming up and buying it and saying, "Oh wow, this looks great." And inside, I wanted to go, "No, it's not. No, it isn't really great. The last 5 pages are good. The rest of it's terrible." But the editor was right there next to me, so I couldn't say anything. And it was kind of the best lesson for me, because so many artists have an inferiority complex, or they've guilt over feeling good about their work. And I've seen it happen where they'll go, like, I have a friend who showed his stuff to an artist who was drawing X-Men or something, and the artist said, "Oh, this stuff is great," and my friend was like, "Nah, it's not that good," and he was from Ireland as well, and like we had to kind of realize, like, the humility thing isn't something that translates very well in America. Whereas when I was in America, I would see artists show their work, and they weren't ignorant. They were just like more self-assured. They were like, "Excuse me, can I show you my work?" And they would look, and they had a more self-assured conversation. I remember looking at it going, that was just perfectly polite. Like, that was a good way to present yourself. Me going over going, "Sorry, I'm terrible, but do you mind looking at my awful work?" It's not as charming as I was thinking that it was. And it's the same thing with selling your work. Like, if I'm interested in buying your work and you tell me it's crap, then you're insulting me because I was interested in the first place. It's not humble to say my work isn't good if you're interested in buying it. What I'm doing is telling you that you're an idiot for liking it in the first place. It's weird how your brain will kind of go around in the opposite way. So
the best way to express humility and be humble at the table is just like, "Thank you so much." It's just thanking. It's just exhibiting.
Just say thanks. Yeah, you can hate yourself inside. Just inside hate yourself. That's fine. But to the person, say, "Thank you so much. I appreciate it." And I mean, and I do genuinely appreciate it. Like, a little bit of a compliment, I'm happy to take. Like, bigger compliments is where I do get a little awkward, even though I secretly love it. I mean, I do love it.
Yeah.
But I also feel like a jerk for loving it. So then I'm conflicted inside. So yeah, the best thing to do is just be like thanks so much, because they are saying something nice, and you should thank somebody for a compliment.
Mm-hmm. And they took the time to come to your table.
Exactly. Yeah. They left their house. They in most cases went through their collection, picked the books that you've done, that they bought, brought it all the way to a show, have been carrying it around to the show all day long, have gotten to your table if you're there, because I know I'll do a panel or go to the toilet or whatnot, and if you're not there, they'll come back again. Like, they go to a lot of effort just to kind of talk to you and get their stuff signed. Like, I appreciate that, and I appreciate it all the more now that we can't do them, at the moment.
Yeah, I know it's sometimes difficult for artists because the conventions have gotten so big and so multimedia and stuff. But every sketch duel I do, when I just talking to the audience and hanging out, there's always one person for each artist who said, "I came to this show specifically for them." They got the stack of the ones, everything they got in it too, and everything else. So it's always
now and then somebody will come to my table and they have every issue of Thunderbolts that I did, and like, that's not, I know things kind of get weird with people if they've got like a stack of number ones and they're taking the piss, but like, when you have somebody like who has issue 137 of Thunderbolts, which is my first issue or whatever, I can't remember the number, and they have it all. Like, they are the people who've been supporting you the whole way, and I always feel really humbled by that.
Well, you can tell who the real fans are when they come out to your table. I mean, if somebody comes up with, they've got a box, they've got your run, it's in order, and it's, either it's their own bags and boards methodically kept together, or they come up with like dog-eared copies. Yeah. Right. And I mean, I can't tell you how many signed dog-eared copies of things I have, because I just don't care. I just, I have the dog-eared copies. But then if somebody comes up with like, "Oh, here's 30 copies of, one specific issue, which happens to be the first appearance of so-and-so," okay, well, that's going to go to CGC, and that's going to get swabbed, and that's going to go on eBay. So it's a different logic.
Yeah.
Like, I only really noticed that when Moon Knight issue 1 came out, and big time when All-Star Batman issue 1 came out. A guy literally came up to me with 100 copies, and I'm so naive. I thought he owned them all, because I just hadn't had the experience. I'm generally the guy who just kind of like the weirdo books, like Venom is not Spider-Man, and Deadpool is not Captain America. Moon Knight is not. I mean, even Daredevil, I kind of tend to do like slightly off the wall characters. So to do like basically the biggest book that came out that summer or that month at least, that was weird because I got my interactions at conventions changed a little bit then, but then they changed back once they started doing creator-owned work. They changed right back.
When somebody brings Bog Bodies up to your table, you know they're a fan.
Absolutely, yeah, because most won't like. It is a weird thing promoting creator-owned work because at least if you're doing something like Punisher or Moon Knight, people have a jumping point on to go, okay, well I know what that is, and you're doing that now, so I'll try that out. But if I say, here's something that me as an artist, so here it is. I didn't draw it, and it's characters you don't know. It's definitely a harder sell. But I think things like that is word of mouth. I think tends to be the best way you can sell something, and I think I've done a fairly good job of that. I mean, I don't know how many people are listening to this, but I would hope that hopefully now you know about it, you'll check it out. And if you're interested, you're interested. If you're not, you're not. That's fine.
Well, somebody did say, Paul, who's in the comments, did say he just ordered a copy of your art book.
Oh, excellent. Cheers. Thanks, man.
And Paul had a question.
Oh, sure.
He wanted to know how you felt joining a deep artist group, which included Becky Cloonan, when you drew Conan the Barbarian at Dark Horse, and what did you want to bring to the character?
That's a cool question. Well, I was just flattered. I was a big fan of Brian Wood's work, and I loved that Conan book when it came out. Becky's stuff is beautiful. Dave Stewart colors as well. So yeah, she did, and I think James Harren did the following arc, and I think that was one of the first things people saw James Harren do, and it blew me away. So I was just liking that book. So when I had the opportunity I just did a 3-issue arc on it, and I had worked with Brian doing a 3-issue arc of Northlanders, which I really, really enjoyed. So it was getting to do. I'd say I don't think I necessarily brought anything to the character. I think I just wanted to do my best at really portraying that kind of brutish figure. Give him I draw moody characters, so I tried to kind of project a lot of stuff on him there. But it was more of a challenge for me, storytelling wise and genre wise, because I'd never drawn anything like that period. Oh, cool. I'd never drawn that kind of genre of stuff, and there was a quality to Brian Wood's writing which really informed kind of how I told stories, because everything at Marvel had been like superhero. Doing books like Northlanders and Conan, like there's some really nice double page spreads in Conan, which is literally just the boat on the water, and like there was like one line of dialogue, and that kind of approach to storytelling where Brian would write to the small moments being big. Like, so that action page, that's not a splash page of him cutting people in half. It's panel 4 of 5 panels. He would give big moments he would give a lot of real estate to smaller moments, like when Conan and Belit are making love, or when the boat was burning down. And so I don't know if I really brought anything to the character, but I think working on that character brought something into my own work, which actually really I really kind of leaned into more when I did things like Moon Knight and Injection. Moon Knight was a weird mix of the superhero work I had done at Marvel and the non-superhero work I had done with Brian, I think. But to work on that book following Becky and James was, one, intimidating, but as we were talking about earlier on, it was scary. It was scary to follow them, and I kind of feel like you shouldn't take a book unless you are a bit scared to do it. If you take a book and you're like, yeah, I could do that, it's probably not the book you want to take, because you know what you're going to do already. If you take a book and you're like, I have no idea what I'm going to do here, I feel like it charges you up to try your best, and there's a level of adrenaline that goes into the work, I think.
One thing I liked about your stint on Conan or about your Conan in general, was I appreciated that you made him more athletic as opposed to the beefy interpretation of Conan. Yeah, I really appreciate that. To me, that was very much in line with the literary version and the Barry Windsor Smith version.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to go. Well, I did the same thing with Deadpool as well. I tend to when I was working on Deadpool, I don't like the beefier takes of him, because to me he's a mercenary. He's got to swing through, air ducts and things like that, and
Yeah.
someone who's built that's just not going to work. So I
Yeah.
deliberately made him my version of him is more lean. With Conan, I didn't lean into the like Schwarzenegger vibe. I try to just for me it's more build and power.
Yes.
Than musculature. I mean, when you're a 13-year-old kid, all you want to do is draw the muscles. But now that I'm older, I try to look more at the shape. For me, the two things were his shoulders and his brow. And I love drawing. Like, I'm working on something at the moment. I'm designing a character. I'm like, going to give him a big brow because I love drawing that stuff. I always manage to get a shot of a character in any book I do where it'll be like a close up of their eyes and they've got this big brow. But he was great to do that, and the hair coming down on top of it was. I tried to kind of lean into the iconic approach with him, and that was to me his shape and his hair. But yeah, that was fun to do. Conan has been mentioned to me a couple of times at Marvel, but I've turned it down because I feel like I've not to say like I've done it and that's the best I could do, but I don't like the idea of going back to a character. And I don't know what I've read some of the Mahmoud Ezra Conan stuff is amazing, but I don't know. Doing a Marvel version of Conan to me would work against the Dark Horse version. I don't know.
To Marvel's credit, they've done a much better job with Conan than I expected them to.
Yeah.
And
that Conan book was great.
Even the crossovers with like the Avengers and stuff, I was like, I should not be enjoying this. I should not be enjoying this book, but I have enjoyed all those interactions with the Punisher. They made it work. It felt organic. It didn't feel like a money grab or a force or anything.
It sounded like a bad idea to me, but once I found out Jerry Duggan was writing it, I'm like, he's going to find a way. Like, he's a great writer. So I haven't read the stuff yet, but But it's just a weird thing. It might be just a hang up in my head that it would be weird to draw that character with those other ones. But then again, I mean, they're going to be doing it now with Predator and Alien and stuff. I'm sure that'll be interesting.
If you get a chance, seek those crossovers out.
No, I will.
It may make you reconsider if you have an opening in your schedule.
Yeah, maybe.
Absolutely. What is the dream project?
Daredevil. Writing and drawing Daredevil. Or an X-Men book. I'd love to write and draw an X-Men. Like now, to be honest, I'm just kind of more interested in writing and drawing because I've been drawing and writing. I feel really like I kind of need to kind of cop on and do it, really commit to something. So that's what I'm kind of looking to do right now. Trying to figure out what I want to concentrate all those efforts on.
Sure.
But like if we're going to talk companies, like a 100 like a hardcover Batman book, like an evergreen Batman book, I would love to do.
Sure.
Or Daredevil, or an X-Men, whatever X-Men, I'd figure it out. Or a Winter Soldier, I really like all the kind of spy stuff. Or like that Nick Fury book I did, or the serial I did. I was kind of asked if I wanted to do write and draw a Nick Fury book, and I couldn't do it at the time, and now I kind of wish I had, because I like all that kind of spy espionage corner of the Marvel universe where you can do cool espionage stuff but also kind of go with big superhero stuff. I love all that kind of stuff, so something along those lines. But yeah, there's characters.
I'm a big Nick Fury fan. Any version. So
well, and then I wouldn't recommend it because I did it. That would be weird to recommend it. But you should look it up if you get a chance. The Nick Fury serial. It's the only thing I've written and drawn properly. So I think I want to go and do that. But sorry, your actual question would be Daredevil or Batman or like Wolverine too. Like I know I did Return of Wolverine, but that was more Charles and Steve McNiven's book that I helped on. I'd love to do like an actual, Wolverine story. All the I love clearly I love all that anti-hero stuff.
Who are your favorite X-Men?
Ooh, well, Wolverine, Cyclops, Chamber. I'd love to draw Chamber. He's just such a cool visual. I like Marrow a lot. Bishop. Man, I could be all day at this. How many mutants are there?
No, but it's interesting. Some of the ones you're naming, like Chamber and Marrow.
Yeah,
I mean, sometimes it's the visual. I drew a Chamber for fun one time and did designed a costume for fun, and I'm like, I could draw this book for sure. A Banshee as well. I mentioned. I'd love to like I said, do a more definitive take on a character. Because I did a lot of research at one stage, and I just realized he's kind of done he's kind of like the O'Brien of the X-Men.
Yes.
But he has a castle with leprechauns in it. But
I want to know how he ended up at the Grand Ole Opry when Professor X plucked him out to join the X-Men.
Yeah, also there's so much stuff there with Siren as well. I just feel there's a lot of story there that could be gone with. But I don't know, but case in point, we were saying, like, if I got Daredevil tomorrow, my concern would be, would I just do Frank Miller fan art? Would I just try to do the old Next Generation? Would I, you want to be putting your own spin on these characters, and I think the tendency is for you to try and do the thing that you liked as a kid, which is fine, but you're not moving it forward. You're just kind of looking back all the time. And that's why I think Moon Knight did well, because I didn't have any of those hang-ups. And that's why, as much as those characters I'd love to do, if you handed me a Marvel character, I think I could come up with something. And I think it might even be better than doing the character I really want, because I would be less precious about it all,
So is Cole Meany the national treasure that
yes.
we think he should be?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, he did a lot of bigger films as well. I don't know if you know this. He's in Die Hard 2.
Oh yeah,
I don't remember that.
He was the pilot.
Yeah. He's got a British. I was going to do a British accent. I won't. He's got a British accent in it, but it's fine.
Listen, my favorite Cole Meany film is The Commitments.
Yes, The Commitments is amazing. I prefer.
Road to Wellville.
Sorry,
The Road to Wellville.
I haven't. Is that the new one? Is it?
No, it's very old, but late '90s. That's the one with Anthony Hopkins.
Right. I haven't seen that actually.
He's the guy who invented cornflakes, and he runs this.
Oh, I remember that. That was a crazy movie, but doesn't have the soundtrack that The Commitments has.
You're right.
True. No, but although of those, The Commitments is based on a Roddy Dowell book. But there's another one called The Snapper. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was a big reason why I did this book, Savage Town, because I remember watching that film, and it's for those who haven't seen it. It's about a girl in Ireland who she has a one night stand and gets pregnant, and I think she's like 17 or 18 or something. And it's a big scandal over who's the father, and her dad of course wants to know as well, but she won't tell him. And it's this working class family having to deal with having a young daughter having a baby, and it's basically a family drama, but it's funny as hell. Cole Meany's brilliant in it. I remember watching that going, I've never seen this in comics. I've never seen a working class type story like that in that medium that I love, and I realized I could probably get that made. So that was kind of why it's kind of reason why I started writing that kind of more Irish centric stuff was, well, I've done Daredevil and Moon Knight and Punisher, but I love being able to kind of put something from my own culture into the medium that I love, rather than just kind of only propagating the stuff that I love from my childhood.
As long as it's not Shamrock.
Sorry.
As long as it's not Shamrock.
Yeah, that's a hard one to get around. But as asking about Cole Meany, I got to interview Irish Stephen Bear once, the producer on Deep Space Nine, and one of my questions was is Cole Meany sound? And sound is a phrase we have here for were they good fun? Are they, did you get on? Was he a fun person? And he didn't it's a weird thing, I think, with Irish people. We just want to know if Colin Farrell, anyone who does well from the country, we want them we want them to not turn into wankers.
Yeah.
It's like the problem with what's his name, the MMA fighter Conor McGregor. They're like, fair play to him for being so successful, but does he need to be such a wanker about it?
Right.
And that's why I know I'm safe, because I have all the tools to become a wanker, but my friends will stop me from doing that, so it's fine. But yeah, I just want to know, what was Colmini like? Like, the dream is to go to the pub with Colmini, like with a couple of friends, and have a pint. That would be like the best night ever. But Ira Stephen Bear, he kind of tiptoed around it. I think I got the. I don't think Colmini understands Star Trek at all. Like, he doesn't understand it. He doesn't get why people like it. He's an actor. Like, he's just an actor with a capital A, and it's a job he was dedicated to, and that was it. As a fan of Star Trek, you're like, oh, come on.
But I don't think it's
get it,
But I don't think he's a wanker. I think he's an actor. No. And there are Star Trek people who are great people, but they just don't understand. Like, look, we just did an event this weekend with William Shatner, and Bill Shatner is one of my favorite people in the whole world. And you can't say anything bad about William Shatner to me. He's done God knows how many shows with us now, and he's done.
He's not a young man either. Like, it must be.
He's 89 years old. He's 89.
Holy crap. But
he's a complete gentleman. He's great. He doesn't remember. Star Trek was a job, right? Star Trek was a thing he played. Now I've got Captain Kirk action figures, and signed posters all over my office. But to him, it was a job. Just like he's doing this new show, The Unexplained, on History Channel. That's a job. And as long as you understand that you're dealing with an actor who wants to be good at their profession, who's doing their job, and you talk to them like they're an actor, you're not talking to Captain Kirk, you're talking to Bill Shatner, then it's going to be great. But the minute you think you're talking to Captain Kirk, he's not that guy.
Yeah. I Terry Farrell did an event in Dublin a few years ago, and there was a raffle to get. No, sorry, there was an auction to get her on your quiz team, and so I went to this. It was in Dublin. It was in town, so I went with my friend Stephen Mooney, who draws Dead-Handed Image and Half Past Danger, but we're two of us are big Star Trek fans, so we went, and there was these little girls that kept getting, like, we just wanted to talk to her, and just, again, we don't want to, because I guess we work in a creative industry, we don't want to be seen as fans, even though we absolutely 100% are fans. But I ended up auctioning for this anyway. I kicked the crap out of these two little girls that were auctioning. I remember going, I felt bad. It's like, I shouldn't out auction these two girls. But my friend Mooney was going, he's like, they got loads of photos with her and we've been talking to her all night. We haven't bothered her at all. To hell with those girls. So we totally outbid them and had her on our team. And, asked her about acting, and, like, I know as a creator, I like being asked questions about my craft. And it's the same thing when I talked to Ira Stephen Bear. I asked technical questions about the craft of writing. I think you get more, because that's what these people are dedicated to doing. They're not dedicated to being characters that they played 20 years ago. They're dedicated to their craft. And as much as I am a fan, I try and pretend I don't give a shit. Well, about Star Trek, but I'm wearing a T-shirt or something, so I don't think I'm fooling them.
I feel the same way. I mean, I love, Terry's wonderful. We've had her at the shows a couple of times.
Yeah, she's so nice.
Fantastic. One of the nicest people in the world. But I'm going to tell you, I guarantee you, I know more about Jadzia Dax and the whole Dax line than she does.
Sure. Yeah.
And again, it was a job. Then she went to do Becker, and that was a job, right? Like, so it's different.
Yeah, it's tough because we as fans have an emotional connection to these characters. Like, that there's no way, if you or I were doing any of those roles, you've no idea how much, like, there's people who connect with Deadpool on a level I'll never understand. I won't, because I'm not a Deadpool fan in the same way as they are.
Right. Jimmy Changa.
I don't get any of that. I don't get any of that stuff, I just know the character in the way in which I worked on him, and how I like to.
Sure.
Like when I wrote Deadpool, it was a different challenge to when I was drawing Deadpool. I had to kind of go in a different way. But I had an approach that I developed from drawing it. But I'm not gonna. There's iterations of Deadpool that I'm not interested in as a creator that are going to matter so much to some readers, and you just can't account for that. Like you can't know what's in somebody else's head that way. But and it's hard for us, I think, to understand that sometimes. I mean, you and I clearly do because we're having this conversation, but there's definitely fans that don't understand that at all. They're like, you're Kirk or you're Dax, and I don't understand how it doesn't mean as much to me as it does to you.
It's when the first time that happens, it could be crestfalling.
Yeah.
But if you keep going, you get used to it. You do get used to it. I remember back in the early 80 days, I realized that these comic book artists weren't into it like I was as a fan. And it was a little bitter. It was a bitter pill to swallow. But once you digest it and you get past it, then you're free. You're good to go. You're absolutely good.
I did a video thing for the Hero Initiative yesterday. I think one of the questions was, how do I feel about being so connected to Moon Knight? And my answer was like, yeah, I'm fine with it. Because it was successful. It did really well, and it was creatively really rewarding. But like, if it was something that I was disappointed with, I can't think of a project off the top of my head, but there's some projects are not what you want them to be. And if the thing that I wasn't happy with is the thing I'm remembered for, I would be a lot more annoyed. I'm fine with the Moon Knight thing. I think it's a little unfair because there's guys who followed me that did amazing work that don't get the credit they deserve. It gets thrown my way, but what am I going to do? I'll take it. But if it's something that I'm so proud of, I'm okay with that. But I only did 6 issues. As much of a mark that we had, I guess it'll depend when that TV show happens and what way they go with it. If they don't use our stuff, then that won't be. I think that actually might die off, if I'm being honest. But if they do use it, then that's going to be a whole new wave of the same stuff. So it's. And I would imagine the actors are kind of the same way. If they had a good experience, I'm sure it's great. Like I get the feeling that say Frakes loves it because I've met him at Star Trek conventions, and he's got a twinkle in his eye the whole time, like the roguish devil that he is. Mike
and I have spoken to him on several times on this, and yes, he does. He absolutely does.
Which is great. I think that comes through, and as a fan, having approached him as a fan, that was great. It's a weird thing. I think I've more my head around it because I am a creator of stuff on a much smaller level, clearly. But the same thing applies the bigger you get.
Well, the thing about Jonathan, just think about he's into it, but it's been so much more part of his life because he directs so much of it.
Yeah.
So he directed the episodes. He's directing Picard episodes now. He's directing Discovery episodes now.
I got to meet him once, and he made fun of my beard, which was pretty. My friends loved that. But if I got to have a chat with him, I'd ask him all about directing, because clearly there's fan questions as Riker, but again, as somebody who makes work, is a creator, although I'm using quotation marks, but I'd love to ask him questions about directing. I'm sure that would be more interesting to him than what happened on set 30 years ago that he probably doesn't remember because it was right after lunch.
Well, I will say Mike and I got some very good stories about him when he was the face character of Captain America for about 2 years in the late 70s, early 80s.
He was?
Yes, he was. Marvel. He was the guy on weekends that Marvel would send him and a couple other actors to ribbon cuttings and state fairs and the whole 9 yards. And he got to go to the White House. And yeah, it's a really he had mentioned this slightly before, but Mike and I were the first ones to really get the full, complete, really fun story out of him. And that was
that's amazing.
And he was glad to he was glad to share it too. So yeah.
Well, I guess with a lot of these guys, you're asked the same questions a lot. So anytime you get asked something different I'm sure you see it, that people kind of their eyes light up a bit more because it's something that they haven't said 20 times.
Oh, that's Mike knows this as host, moderator, whatever my job is. I'm looking for the moment where I have them do a double take, where I can ask them something and they're like, "Oh yeah, that movie. Okay, yeah."
Oh my god, that's amazing. I did not know that at all.
Yeah,
I can see it too. Like he had the stride for it.
His buddy was what, Spider-Man, and they got jobs, and he got to be Captain America's buddy, got to be Spider-Man. He tells all these great stories about how he got the better end of the deal because he got to have the mask open so he could eat and drink and do whatever,
Right.
where Spider-Man couldn't do anything. And
although he had to stand on top of a car and they would drive him in, so he had to kind of balance with the trash can lid, as he called it, because it literally was a trash can lid they just painted.
Man, a generation missed out on like they just have Chris Evans and they could have had Jonathan Frakes.
Have you never seen these? I got to show you this. So this is what Marvel would send out for appearances in the olden days.
No. Wow.
And so you could rent them to go to, like, schools or events, or
the Hulk is amazing. Oh my god! Oh, the poor guy in the Thing costume.
Yeah.
Oh,
and they
wow.
would,
I didn't know about this stuff.
They would all just beat the hell out of the Green Goblin, I guess.
Yes, take that.
And Jonathan and his buddies, they all went to the White House during the Carter administration. And the Green Goblin actor was a little too much in character and actually frightened Amy Carter, President Carter's daughter. And when you frighten the daughter of the president, the Secret Service gets frightened. Yeah. Stan Lee was there. Stan Lee had to interject, and he was like, no, it's fine. And Frakes didn't know this either. Like, Frakes said there was a little bit of a fracas, and I realized, oh, wait, I read about this. And this was when Frakes had met Stan Lee, and yeah.
Oh, wow.
And there's a president's daughter with the Green Goblin.
And so that would be Frakes in the...
Yeah,
that's Frakes, yeah.
Man, that's crazy. Did you know that story before he told you it?
I didn't know he was there. He began talking about going to the White House, and then I realized, wait a minute, Peter David talked about this in his Stan Lee biography. Wow. So we put the pieces together. So it was just,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So this is, yeah. Oh, speaking of two things I want to share about Calm Meanie. When we had Terry Farrell and I hosted her one time, some of the audience did ask, so who was the biggest jokester on the set? And she said, Calm. And I was like,
oh, really?
I did a double take. I was like, really? Because you're right. I do get a sense that he kind of holds Star Trek a little bit at arm's length, but I just couldn't picture him being the cut up on the set. But she was absolutely like, oh, absolutely. He absolutely was.
Oh, good. That's good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was, and yeah.
That's amazing. Because it's this thing I think that we have here. You know what the Graham Norton show is? Have you?
Oh yeah,
of course, yes.
Yeah, so it's big now, but I mean, it used to be just something that people in the UK or Ireland knew. Graham Norton he's Irish, but it happens every time where if there's a movie out, I'll talk to my mum and she'll decide the stuff that she'll watch based on how much she liked the people, how they react to Graham Norton on that show, because it's a weird show. They tell weird stories, and it's it's far more irreverent than, say, like the kind of your American type chat shows. But I remember I think I saw I went to go see Interstellar, and I was talking to my mom. And I said like, "Oh, you should go see Interstellar. It's very good." And my mom was like, "Nah, I saw Matthew McConaughey and Graham Norton. I didn't like him." She's like, judge the movie based on how up for it the actors are, and considering the thing we were just talking about, I mean. You see some actors like Tom Cruise and Matt Damon totally embrace that kind of format and they go with it. But I totally understand if like an actor is just showing up to do an appearance and like this insane show is doing mad crap and you have no idea how to you need a bit of it's a phrase we have called crack. Like you need a bit of you need to be able to be up, you need to be up for it, be up for a bit of a laugh. And and I think we all hope the people that we like are like that. And for example, Frakes was like that, and Terry Farrell was like that, and it seemed that Calm Meanie wasn't. So I'm really happy to hear that he was.
Yeah, I probably was too. And another funny story I know about Calm was when he was afraid he had been fired.
Oh, really?
Next Generation. He had been booked. He had got the script. He had read through the whole thing, and he was like, "I've been fired." And I think it was Frakes who said, "No. You've been given a name. You're Chief O'Brien."
Right. Yeah.
And he was like, "That's me," and he looked through it. It was, I'm a character now, and yeah, they didn't tell him that they had actually decided we're gonna give your character a name, and you're gonna be Transporter Chief O'Brien.
Yeah,
I don't even think he had a full name, but they decided Transporter Chief O'Brien. So, because at first he was like gonna call his agent. It's like, why'd you send this to me? I'm not in it.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's great. I mean, it even like also just even as a kid, it was great seeing an Irish guy in a TV show like that. You know, it kind of take for granted now the amount of British and Irish actors in mainstream shows at the moment. There's littered of them, but at the time it was pretty much just Colm Meaney, or Pierce Brosnan, or there's a one or two others, but that was kind of it. So
I don't know.
So Mike, if we ever book Colm, then we absolutely need to have Declan.
Oh, it's on my bucket list. It's on my bucket list. But I'm going to tell you, we've booked the majority of people from Next Gen and Deep Space Nine, and I don't think there's anyone that has ever not been cool. I mean,
that's correct.
People have off days,
Sure.
But
man, there's times it shows I'm like I'll keep it together, but sometimes I'm just not in the form, But
we work with these guys all the time, and I don't work with people I don't like.
Sure.
So next week on the 25th, we're doing like Jonathan, Brent, LeVar, Marina, Delancey, and Denise Crosby for a digital thing.
That's insane.
And everybody has their own personalities. Everybody has their moments and their quirks, but we enjoy. I've enjoyed working with all these guys, and trust me, there are actors who will never step foot in one of our shows again that are just not cool with fans or just have some kind of weird chip on their shoulder. And I haven't really experienced that with the Trek guys.
No,
that's great. Well, I think especially with that kind of genre of stuff, they really appreciate that. There's some actors who'll be on a show and nobody will ever care, but there's people who years later still care so much about it. So I'm sure there's a appreciation there.
Yeah, I think those guys knew going in that they were going to be, that people were going to think this way about them. I think the old guys didn't quite realize when they signed on in the 60s this would be their life, right? Like Walter and George didn't know that this was going to be the thing. And not that Walter and George, they're great with fans. But I think that by the time Next Generation came around, these guys knew they were going to be going to conventions. Especially
I can't relate to that. I don't think anyone's going to be asking me about Moon Knight in 30 years, whatever. But
are you kidding?
No, I don't think anyone, I'm sure someone's going to do something else, and they'll be way more successful. You guys know better than me.
We do interviews with guys on this thing where we're talking to like Jim Shooter or Ramita Jr. about things that happened 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, but those books there was such a bigger audience back then. The audience is more niche now. I don't know. It's hard for me to know this stuff because I just live in my house.
Every comic book is somebody's first.
Oh, for sure. And I definitely know that, like I said, I've met some artists who've said such really nice things about, say, Moon Knight. And like that is genuinely, I was at a show in Emerald. I was at Emerald City. No, not Emerald City. What the hell was I? I was at Comics Pro just before your show, and there was an artist telling me like really nice things about my work that like clearly he looked up to what I had done, which is weird for me because I still think of myself as an up and comer, but like like I just said, I'm 10 years of Marvel, so clearly not. But it's it clearly really hit a certain core audience that really are passionate, a really artistic audience too, which is great. It's really humbling. It's a little bit uncomfortable too because I'm not used to that, but it's amazing. It really is. But I just don't think that's going to be something that sticks for 20, 30 years. But like for me, when I do conventions, I feel it's like making a personal connection. I feel that people who I talk to at shows they're not just going to buy a book off me. They'll buy the next one and the one after that. I hope, unless I totally put them off, which is entirely possible. But I think it's the hand selling of your work. I think is a great skill to learn, and once you get your head around it, I've learned to really enjoy it because I've just met some genuinely really lovely people. My problem is with Twitter, they have handles I don't recognize. But if they say, "Oh, I met you," or whatever, I'm like, "Oh, like, well, not everyone. Don't get me wrong. Some I forget because I have a terrible memory. But it's always nice to know, like, it's like we had a good chat one time, and that person comes back every time, and you know, that makes it feel like they've made a connection with your work that's more than just a name, you know.
Sure. I think, like I said, and I hold to that metaphor I did about your version of Moon Knight being the David Tennant version. That's going to be a version that defines Moon Knight for quite a long time, and I think that work is going to be evergreen. And I'm not saying it should. I'm going to say you're going to continue to keep doing good stuff.
Patty, hang on a second. Hopefully, there's more to come, and so people will be talking about the stuff that you haven't done yet more so than the stuff that you have done.
That'd be nice.
Yes.
Hopefully you have
it's I think honestly I think wanting to write and draw my own work will make that more possible because you know, if you hook up with a writer and you do run in a book, the writer tends to be the one that people remember, like, you know, Ellis and Moon Knight. But I think I get because I did all those issues, I think I'm as associated with that book for the most part. And I would love to be able to do a Moon Knight on other characters. So yeah, maybe I'm the guy who completely revolutionizes. I don't know. I got nothing. Maybe I'm just buzzing with ideas.
Or Declan, maybe you're the guy who does a creator-owned book that, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's my current plan is to do like my because of the stuff with Warren, I don't see anybody really getting into injection anymore. So you know, which has been a little tough to deal with, but I kind of made a decision of, well, you know, if that's the case, then make a new Image book. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. I'm going to put those energies into making something else new. And who knows? You never know. I mean, that is the thing, man. I mean, I'm sure you know better than anybody else. Anything can happen these days. Like the success of the things I mentioned earlier on, or the fact that Captain America or that Iron Man is the biggest superhero character. Like, it's insane the stuff that's happened, you know. Or what's now the Old Guard is a movie on Netflix now, you know, like. That's insane. Like anything can happen, which is really exciting.
The Boys is this big TV series.
I know. Like, I honestly, I didn't read The Boys because I'm like, I'm a massive Garth Ennis fan, but like, you know, I'm a bit tapped out on Garth right now. And that's the show and I've watched the show and it was excellent, you know. But you're right. Anything goes right now. So, which is amazingly exciting from a creator's point of view because. Like I said, I have no idea what's happening with this Moon Knight show. I found out when a friend of mine from Scotland messaged me going, "Hey, what do you know about this Moon Knight show?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" But you know, who knows what's going to happen with that? Who knows what's going to happen with? I did find it funny that when I worked on Deadpool, when nobody knew who he was, and then it was a film, and the same with Venom. So yeah, I should just work on a character that hasn't been a film yet and see that kick off.
I don't know if Marvel's contract extends to all the Robert Howard characters or just Conan, but I'd love to see you do Solomon Kane. I'd love to see you do a new. I'd love to see your take on a Solomon Kane. I don't
really know Solomon Kane, to be honest. Didn't they do a character? Didn't Becky write a character from Conan world? What was her name? She wrote it, and Luca Pizzari drew it. Luca Pizzari didn't draw it. I can't remember. But there's a Conan-esque character that Marvel did a series of. So I mean, it's entirely possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know who that character is. But in all these cases, like, just, you know,
he's in the 1700s. He's interesting. He's a Puritan and a very devout man of faith. But he's a wrecking machine monster at the same time.
Okay, I'll have to look them up. Yeah, I've seen the covers and stuff. I just never actually read the stories.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a And for some reason, if I was at Marvel, I'd throw you on that. I'd offer you that.
Oh, fair enough. Well,
Paul said you're thinking of Dark Agnes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, grand. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, but I don't know the character Dark Agnes, so I don't know if it. I just know it was Conan related. I don't know if it's part of the license or whatnot.
Yeah, as I honestly don't know either, but
in most of these cases, like it's just like, is there anything interesting about the character? Like I said, I mentioned the ones I really love, but like Nick Fury Jr. wasn't on my bucket list when I was offered it. But when I was offered it, I kind of did some reading. I'm like, I can do this.
Yeah.
So sometimes the challenge is what actually kind of gets you interested, rather than just the characters you really, really want to work on. Because again, like I said, sometimes they can be paralyzing, and maybe they're not the ones you want to do.
So well, and go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, so what are you working on now?
Nothing. Nothing. I just finished, like yesterday, finished a short story for Marvel that I wrote and drew. It's for an anthology. They haven't announced yet. I assume they're announcing it soon. I posted a little tease of it today, but yes, that's done. So at the moment, I have just like a cover to do for Marvel and some commissions with Paolo. And I had a gig lined up that fell through recently. So it's weird, for the first time in a long, long time, I actually don't know what I'm doing next.
Well, this is the time to start working on your new Creator own thing.
Well, that is what I am doing. I've got a pitch. Yeah. I'm working on that pitch now. I have a pitch done. I just want to do some art for it. Once I have but then there's commissions I have to do first. But yeah, I'm gonna send it off in the next couple of weeks, see what happens. So that's what I put my energies in. But I am writing something that I'm halfway through it now, and it's I think it'll be announced for San Diego Comic-Con. But I'm writing a book for another publisher. It's like a miniseries, a horror miniseries, and that's been a lot of fun actually. There's actually been there's one character that I've managed to kind of make into a type of Starfleet thing, and I realized I'm basically getting to write, the image shows up on the view screen. I realize I'm basically writing Star Trek through this really weird horror lens. But cool. So that's fun. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. Cool. And I have another creator-owned book that I'm kind of co-writing. But it's weird that I had a Punisher book that has been paused because of COVID. I don't know when that's coming out, which is to have done nearly a whole miniseries and just don't know what's happening with it. So I'm in a weird limbo where I'm working on 4 different things that I don't know when they're coming out, except for the one writing project. So.
All right. Well,
sorry, that's a bit of a sorry.
No, it's good. I mean, there are worse things than working on 4 things at once that are all going to pop up in the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, no, I think the short story I wrote and drew will be announced for I think it's out in October, as is this book that I'm writing. So I'll have 2 things out in October, I think. Okay. 1 or 2 anyway.
All right. So, and people can follow you online on
Declan Shalvey on Instagram and Twitter. I'm not really on Facebook anymore. There's just too many platforms. I'm not doing TikTok. I'm sorry, just not doing it.
Are you sure? Because I see you as the next TikTok breakout.
Nah, I don't think so. But if anything, I'm trying to kind of slow down. I'm just trying to. There's just too much of that stuff, man. Like, because I do a newsletter as well. There's Twitter, there's Instagram, there's the shop. There's just so much. It's a lot of work just being a freelance creator online. Not to mention doing the work. That's only one part of the job.
Yeah. Social media presence is the product.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I didn't have to do it at all, to be honest. Now, I liked it when the early days, but now it's kind of more taxing. But like I say, something with Bog Bodies, the only way I can really get anybody to know about it is spread the word, like through those kind of platforms. If you're doing creator-owned work, unless you're Brian K. Vaughan, who he'll just sell his stuff himself. But otherwise, you've got to do everything you can, because even at that, like, because there's so many platforms. If I just tweeted once about something, nobody would ever see it, because there's just so much content being churned all the time. So yeah, it's a whole job.
Indeed.
So everybody, if you get the chance, go order or go buy Bog Bodies.
Yeah, please. I just if you Google it, so there's a website, bogbodiesgn.com. There's some preview pages, and we do have a soundtrack for it as well that you can listen to for free. It's on Spotify.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a friend of mine. It's like a really moody, atmospheric soundtrack. It's like an hour long, so you can just listen to it while you read the book. I was because the book we're kind of going for a cinematic feel, so I thought like a soundtrack would be a really cool thing. And it's actually I actually was listening to it while I was writing as well, so it's this really weird thing where the book influenced the music and the music influenced the book. But yeah, please check it out. It's only like $12.99. A self-contained graphic novel, and if you like that, then Savage Town is kind of a bit of a prequel to that.
Okay.
And yeah, the art book was out in January. Injection is a nice hardcover now. But yeah, just Google Declan and comics and a rank of stuff will come up. There's no other Declans in comics.
Go to cadencecomicart.com if you want to commission. I have to do this, otherwise Paul will come to my house and and
not in COVID.
No,
if anything, now is the time to have a go at him.
So, all right, Declan, it's past your bedtime.
Yeah, getting there. Yeah, I probably should go to bed.
So we'll wrap this up. And thank you for joining us. Stick around a minute. I'm gonna do the outro, and then we'll go backstage. Any final words, guys?
No, just thanks for everybody for tuning in. I don't know who is or what, or it might just be the three of us. But yeah, no, I hope.
No, we had Andrea, Paul, Michael, Lisa, Kyle. Yeah, we've had an audience today. Rhonda.
Oh, thanks for tuning in.
And then this will be broken up into 2 podcasts, so it'll go up as 2 episodes of the podcast. Then people pull it up later and listen to it. So this is just the step 1.
Cool. Yeah, let me know, and I'll spread the word.
So this will be stuck, forever and ever and ever. It'll haunt you.
Yes, this will be the one.
Yeah. I've done worse. I've done a lot of worse stuff.
Forget Moon Knight. Tell us about the GalaxyCon Talks Comics you did in 2020 during the pandemic.
Yeah, the controversial.
All right, so we'll see you backstage, and good night, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Everybody.
See ya.